All right, let's get to it. James Mennie over at the Montreal Gazette. So, Jim, things are getting, you say, surprisingly close in that upcoming by-election in Arthabaska. That's the one that's supposed to vault Eric Duhem into power, or at least into a legitimate seat, right?
Well, you might want to knock the quotation marks off of that vault over there, Aaron, because these numbers suggest that this guy's got for the time being. This guy's got a real ankle on this. A poll commissioned, in fact, by the Parti Québécois found that their candidate is polling like 42%. Okay, and here's James polling at 41%. And of course, what's interesting is that this riding in Arthabaska was held by the Coalition Avenir Québec. And Eric Lefebvre, who was the CAQ MNA there for 2 terms, he ran successfully for the Conservatives in the last federal election. However, right now, the way things stand, the Liberals, who haven't even named a candidate for that by-election, are polling 9%. The CAQ hasn't named a candidate for that by-election either. However, they are polling, wait for it, 3%. Remember, wow. the CAQ incumbent, during the last election, last general, he won with 52% of the vote in the riding. He was 12,000 votes ahead of the second-place Conservative. So, I get the feeling, Aaron, that you and I and our listeners are slowly but surely drifting to that same weird kind of political Bermuda Triangle that existed just before the 2018 election, where you think, this is going to happen because of this party and because of that party, and then all of a sudden you wake up the next morning and you've had, you've been completely surprised, completely gobsmacked by a complete turnaround in the entire political framework, which is why, believe it or not, yes, we do look at the CAQ as a spent force, and how long before Monsieur Legault leaves, or as I suggested, will he perhaps, if he sees any kind of a break in the polls, will he want to go down fighting in an early election? But don't be so sure. Certainly, the PQ could be very resurgent, but then again, they may run out of gas. And I know I've said it, and I'll keep repeating it. I don't know Aaron James from a hole in the ground. I know he's been on the show several times, and I got no skin in the game with the Conservatives. Keep your eye on them, because I think, once again, we have got a big chunk of the electorate that is looking at what's already out there, that already has representation in the National Assembly, and they're going, meh, I'm not crazy about it. And we know, this show knows that a lot of people in our listening area, a lot of people in Montreal, a lot of Anglos in Montreal, are trying to find themselves a paperclip to undo the handcuffs that have attached them to the Quebec Liberals for generations. So you never know. But I just got a feeling that maybe we are going to have a few surprises. Maybe not necessarily in this by-election. I still think, and I think that poll's on the money. I think it's going to be super close. But I think coming the general, whether it's held when it's supposed to be next October in 2026, or whether somebody decides to call an early election, I think we're going to see some surprises. And don't forget the potential for a change that simply exists in what's happened in Ottawa and what's happened between this country and Washington. Everything has been turned upside down. And I really think you, the general, you would presume certain political truisms at your peril. I think there's a lot that's up in the air right now, and I don't think anybody who's being truthful actually knows where it's going to land.
I think that's the case. Nobody knows where it's going to land. Like you yesterday, Jim, when you suggested, don't be so sure there's going to be an election in the fall. There may be one sooner. Who knows? I mean, you're right. Yeah. So many things are in play. That's a possibility as much as anyone else is or anything else is.
Yes, sir.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say it's the same thing when but you look at the Liberals today because Mr. Pablo Rodriguez, the newly minted leader of the Quebec Liberal Party, he attended his first caucus meeting. Now, of course, he can't go into the National Assembly because he doesn't have a seat. But when he came in, he brought an extra MNA, Marie-Claude Nichols, who we talked about back in the day. She left the Quebec Liberals in a huff because then leader. Boy, how soon they forget, eh?
You talking about Philippe Couillard?
No, Anglade, Dominique Anglade.
Oh.
He had a chip with Dominique Anglade because Dominique Anglade did not want to choose her to be like the third deputy speaker,
Right.
which is apparently is a paying gig. So she says, "Oh yeah, you can't fire me, I quit." So she said as an independent, but then she threw her support behind Rodriguez. She said, "If he gets elected leader, I will come back." She came back. So now the Liberal presence in the National Assembly has, wait for it, skyrocketed to 20 seats out of the 125 that are there. But the biggest development, and I don't think a lot of people have picked up on this, I just find it unusual. Charles Milliard, who was clearly the phenomenal story of this otherwise, as far as I'm concerned, watching paint dry Liberal leadership race, this guy who's a political neophyte, managed to get all this kind of support among the youth wing, had a very, very strong showing, and came in second in the second vote that saw Mr. Rodriguez elected. And he basically called upon the Liberal rank and file to throw their support behind Mr. Rodriguez, which when you think about it, yes, that's the right thing to do. It's the kind of, proper Boy Scouty thing to do. Yeah, we're all on the same team. Let's go together, blah, blah. But I just find it unusual. You would think that the Liberals would be so desperate to do something right after all these years that would be a given. But I'm not entirely sure. We saw what happened with poor Madame Anglade when we had the so-called mothers-in-law, the former Liberal cabinet ministers and former, Charest regime members, either privately or publicly condemning how she was running the party. I'm not entirely sure that we're not going to see the same kind of nattering, the same kind of criticism occur within the party now that it's being led by Mr. Rodriguez. Perhaps I'm wrong. Perhaps he'll bring the hammer down and say, you don't like it, leave. But all that said, it's going to be very, very interesting. This Liberal Party is not the same Liberal Party we even knew 6 months ago. I think we're going to see some interesting changes there as well. Will it get them into power? That remains to be seen. But as I say, as someone who, as one of those Anglos who is looking at the Liberal Party, who has looked at the Liberal Party with a John Desai for decades, I'll be very interested to see how they reinvent themselves this time and see whether I should pick a particular day not to wear anything too nice because I'm about to get thrown under a bus.
Well said. Jim, want to get your take on this? Of course, Mark Carney is involved in that ad that says, hey, Canada, we want you to stay at home, spend your summer here. We're going to make it available with this Canada Strong Pass, free entry into galleries, museums, national parks, which, on the surface is a great idea. Do you think it works?
You know what? I think it will. I think there's something out there. I think a lot of people, and I don't want to sort of drag you into it that way, but I remember your great road trip through Quebec.
Yeah.
And you discovered how absurdly beautiful this place is, how absurdly huge this place is. Well, you can say that about the entire country, and that's the biggest shame. Most Canadians haven't the slightest idea of what their country looks like. So if you've got a chance to get out, oh, by the way, Canada, where your dollar buys you 100 cents.
Exactly.
Okay? So there's that too. But yeah, there's so much going for it. If you can get out there, I think if anything else, if there's a downside, Aaron, I think because of the economic uncertainty, a lot of people simply are not going to travel because they don't want to spend their money on it. But I think you're going to see a lot more people. We've certainly seen the numbers drop for tourism to the U.S. Will it, spike in Canada? I can only hope so. But once again, you never know. But for sure, when it comes pound for pound as an attraction, this country has no rival. And if you can get out, folks, get out there. It's really, really worth the trip.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Jim, thank you. Appreciate it.
Adam,